I think. Okay. Idan, you didn't actually assign people to this session, did you?
No.
So everyone is here because they want to be here. Oh my goodness. This is wonderful. I mean, on an afternoon like this, you're here to talk about assessment? What can I say? I feel hopeful for the future. No, I'm kidding. Actually, these crowds in these sessions are getting bigger and bigger, which makes me really happy, because assessment is probably not everyone's cup of tea. It's not the most popular topic among ELT teachers or students, but it has to be done. I've called this session Resources for ELT Assessment, Where Are They? Because when I was invited to give this talk, and I thank the university very much, by the way, for inviting me to be here, I feel really, really happy to be sharing this with you. Burcu reminded me that there were certain resources in the field of assessment, the ELT assessment, that perhaps not many people were aware of. So, some of the things that I'm going to mention in this session are going to be perhaps new to you, but I'm sure some of it will be repetition for you. So, if you don't mind, before I talk about each resource, I'm simply going to ask, are you familiar with this? If you could raise your hands, that way I can just calibrate how much extra information I need to give and where to shut up, actually. Okay. All right. Thank you very much for coming. There are a lot of Turkish speakers here. There are also some native speakers here who have perhaps been in Turkey for a while and who speak Turkish a little. The reason why I'm asking is because I'd like to start with a quick song to reflect the title of my talk. Where are the resources for ELT assessment? And this is the song I picked. It's a short one. This is also my feeble attempt to make assessment a fun topic to talk about. I hope this was a fun start. Okay, so where are they, really? That's what I'd like to talk about. Now, I will start with an interesting quote about teaching. This actually took place in the IATF Glasgow conference that I was at about a month ago, and some of you were there. Somebody said, but after all, teaching isn't rocket science, is it? This question was asked to a plenary speaker. And this was her response. She said, of course not. Teaching is a lot more difficult. The sad thing is that you get that quite late, when you're already in love with it. And I wholeheartedly agree with this. I mean, you're all here on a Saturday, nice weather outside, at the end of a very busy week, I'm sure. Not because you're rocket scientists, but because you're doing something more valuable. We all are, I think. So, as far as teaching goes, can we agree that this is why we're in this profession? Because we love it, yeah? Okay, it's not rocket science, but it's more difficult. Now, one side of teaching is, obviously, assessment. Do you think that's rocket science? So I was thinking about that. I was pondering that a little bit. And then a colleague that we organized a course with recently, about a couple of months ago in Istanbul, blogged about that course, and she said this. She said, after a 5-day workshop, as an EFL teacher, I've had to test student performance all my professional life, sometimes by using ready-made tests, sometimes by the tests I prepared, or a test that I was heavily involved in the preparation of. Most of the English teachers do that as well. However, there are incredible details a tester has to consider while planning, preparing, administrating, marking, and analyzing the results if they want to do it as appropriately as they can. And even then, we learned that there isn't such a thing called a perfect test. So she concluded by saying, came to the conclusion that while teaching is an art, testing must surely be science. So is testing rocket science? Maybe to some. But does it need to be? That's what I'd like to ponder today with you. And maybe a quick guess as to who said this? Anyone? It was Burcu. This was Burcu's quote when she blogged about the course. And then, just as I was thinking about this, preparing my presentation, you know how sometimes certain things happen one after the other and they make you think. And then I read an article about Steve Jobs' vision of education. May God rest his soul. His vision of education was to Appleize it. He wanted to reinvent the textbook. And what he wanted was, and actually Apple are still working towards it, current textbooks could not compete with what was available online through Apple applications, because current textbooks are not portable, they're not searchable, they're not current, and they're not interactive, and our students are. And in fact, just to put more butter on the cake, did you know that there are now over 20,000 educational apps already available for the iPad? And more than 1 million iPads are already used in education as we speak, and the numbers are increasing all the time. So, of course, when this is the world that our students are living in, we're having to use more online resources in terms of, bringing life to our teaching, embellishing it here and there, sometimes for all sorts of different purposes. But what about the world of testing and assessment? Do you think the world of ELT testing and assessment is keeping up with the developments in technology? Can you find as many as 20,000 apps when you search for assessing English? Have you ever tried? I did. You don't get many. But this is the world we're heading. Soon, our students are going to start looking for apps for everything. Instead of doing this, that, or the other, they're going to want applications which can do things for them. So, here's another one. Let's see what you think about this. It says in the year 95, it used to be answer all questions, 5 years later, answer in 5, 2005, select the correct answer, then right now we're going to write either A or B. Soon we will all say, please only read the questions. And then we will just say, thank you for coming, bye-bye, and no test. I don't know. Maybe that will happen, maybe that won't. My prediction is, it won't. I think we will still need tests, so I don't think that's going to change. So as long as we keep on teaching this language that we are in love with, the job that we are in love with, doing that job, somebody is going to have to continue producing these exams. And those somebodies are probably already in this room. I'm sure some of you are already involved with testing and assessment. Can I actually have a quick raise of hands to see? Yes, quite a few. And maybe the others are considering. So, then of course my next question is, how often do you write tests?
6 times a year.
6 times a year.
High school, 3 exams.
That's quite good. It's very frequent. A few times a semester? Yeah? Never? Seldom? Well, you're not alone. This is very well known. We're all teachers here. We all have certain qualifications, obviously. But Bailey, Noonan, and Curtis found out in their research that as teachers, by the time we graduate, we've taken hundreds of tests. But as teachers of English, we've only actually written 2 or 3 tests. And of course, when we actually start teaching, we get further away from writing tests, and we delve into teaching every single day, because that's our major occupation. Should that be the case, I was going to say, well, let's say you want to change that. Let's say you want to write more tests. Are there enough online resources available? My answer is, like I said, there aren't many resources out there. There are even fewer online resources. And even fewer practical resources. Maybe none at the moment. But first, I would like to cover some current issues with ELT testing and assessment, which somehow overlap, I hope, with what I'm going to talk about later. There are very few training opportunities. This is what I keep coming across everywhere I go. And in my capacity as the IETFL TC coordinator, I've traveled to quite a few countries where I organize conferences. And believe me, regardless of the context, people do not get enough training in producing tests. They get enough training, in-service training, workshops, this and that, to improve their teaching, to improve anything related to teaching, their research skills, this and that, but there simply aren't enough opportunities, training opportunities, for testers and assessors. Would you agree? Yes? Okay. Most ELT degrees, or teaching certification programs, or TESOL MAs offer only limited input on testing. And you can, if you really push it, or if you are lucky, if you happen to be doing this program in a place where testing is a priority, or there's a department which offers courses in testing, like Lancaster University, for instance, at the moment, then, yeah, you get proper courses in testing. But if that's not the case, then you don't. Most courses are at very surface level. Even the ones that do offer input into testing offer extremely limited practical advice, or actual practice in writing, analyzing, and administering a test. Therefore, most testing is learned on the job, with a lot of sweat, a lot of tears, a lot of backache, shoulder ache, and all sorts of troubles, but it is learned on the job. Which leads to, I think, A, struggling in the dark, B, trial and error, you learn when you make a mistake, and eventually, frustration. And so some people simply don't want to handle it, and they say, I'm going back to teaching. This is way too much for me. Again, this leads to, I think, a rise in commercial testing, obviously. Because if testing is challenging, and if teaching is our priority, then doesn't it make sense to just pay some people who are hopefully doing it properly? And in many contexts, of course, it leads to the ivory tower of ELT testing. This group of testers who are, who live in a world of their own, who have a weird jargon that they use when they speak. And in one institution where I worked at, actually, we were considered so dangerous that we were kept at a different building. We weren't even allowed to go into the classroom. We weren't allowed to teach, yeah? But obviously, that's not the healthy way to go about it. Obviously, that ivory tower has to be broken. And who's going to break it? Who's going to break it? We will, of course. Yes, absolutely. It has to be teachers. Because just as teaching, research, feedback, professional development is part of our job, so is assessment. And as teachers, the more we know, the more we're aware, the more we are equipped with these tools, then of course, we will reflect that to our learners, I think, which is very important. And their perception of assessment is likely to improve for the more positive perhaps, rather than more negative. And very, very important, of course, the more transparent we are with our assessment practices, the more relaxed the whole assessment system is going to be. Having said all that, of course, I have to say, but, okay, that's what we want in the ideal world, but who's going to help us? Yes, we want help, we're requiring help, but who's actually going to give it to us? Now, I hope I can offer a few resources. So resource number one that I'd like to talk about is Professor Glenn Fulcher's website. Can I see how many people are familiar with this website? Okay, excellent. All right, it's called Language Testing Info. Yes, this works. Okay. He's a very well-known name, actually, in the field of language testing. He's had this website for quite some time. Actually, since 1995, he's been running the same website. By the way, if you leave your email address with me, I can send you a copy of the slides after the presentation. Okay. Maybe a piece of paper, if I could ask, maybe. Yeah. I'll just leave it here. Thank you for that. So if you could leave your email with me, I'll send you a copy. All right. But why did he do this? Exactly because of what we've been talking about. Because there wasn't a proper resource, online resource, to offer help and guidance in ELT assessment. What he wants to do is to provide a reference guide. Of course, he has several resources on language testing on the website, you will see, which are freely available for language testers, students of language testing, for students of applied linguistics and languages. What I like about this site is, one of the first things that he has videos of important subtopics under testing and assessment. A particular expert, you probably know some of these names like Spolsky, Alderson, Herb Lyons, Gary Buck, John Reed, I don't know, Schwami, John Lidong, and so on. These people are giving you a short introduction to what these are. Let's have a look at one of them very quickly. So if you go to the website and if you go to videos, okay, you get a list of these. And then down here below, for instance, you can get list and clients telling you about main principles of what assessing writing is, what should we pay attention to. God, it's awfully hard in this room, isn't it?
What is a writing assessment?
The most important characteristic of a writing assessment is that in this form of assessment, the test taker actually writes, as opposed to completing multiple choice items or some other non-productive form.
Okay, it's not rocket science, but it is introductory, I think, and I think these are quite good sources. So I would definitely recommend you having a look at these videos section. Nothing like that exists online for language testing. What else is on this website? Well, there's an incredibly comprehensive list of books that are available on testing and assessment. And Dr. Fulcher is really crazy about this, actually. Every new book that comes out gets put here. And you can browse by category. You even get the Amazon prices. You can go to Amazon directly from this website and order these books. And if you like, for instance, let's say you want to do a presentation on testing listening, if you click this link, it will give you all the books that have been published on testing listening, which are currently available. So this is quite useful as well. What else? He gives you a list of publications regarding testing and assessment, which are freely available on the internet as well. So if you again click that website, you're going to see in alphabetical order an incredible number of articles. So if you are to write a paper on testing, for instance, and I still use this very, very often, this is the place to go to. And if it's freely available online, the link is provided. All you need to do is actually look at the link. And if not, then there are other ways of getting those articles. There are also, you get access to language testing journals, online journals. And here's a list of all the language assessment quarterly, assessing writing. So all the links are provided here. And there's a description of what the journal actually is, what you can find in the journal. What else? Yes, he comes up with certain features, almost every month, actually. The most recent feature that I looked at, for instance, was about cheating on exams, which is a favorite topic, I guess, for most of us. Well, let me go back to this. For instance, I thought you would want to read this. Could you take a minute to read through this? Don't be so hard on your learners if they attempt to cheat. It's as old as humanity, it seems. So, and it's not just by students, it's by examiners as well. So you can find all sorts of interesting stuff to read as well. What else? Yeah, you get help with statistics. Anybody into statistics? Very few people are, in my experience. In every testing unit I worked at, there was only one person. But you get ready-made Excel sheets that you can use. You get score converters. You can analyze your distractors if you're writing multiple choice tests. You can get, if you really want to get serious and you have a burning desire, you can get Chromebox Alpha. You can get item facility indices. All of the statistical information is actually there for you. Plus, you can even get humor. So he does have a few videos on the humor page. For instance, videos from, this one is from, oh God, what was it? Monty Python, yes. Or Mr. Bean. If we have time at the end, I'll share one of these with you. He's got one on cheating. And some poems, and some cartoons, and so on. Okay, so that was resource number one. Resource number two, again I'm going to ask, will be ILTA. Can I see if anyone is familiar with ILTA? Okay, all right. ILTA stands for International Language Testing Association. It's an American-based association. It was established in 1992, and it's an association, well, it's basically the equivalent of, for instance, what IATEFL is to teachers, ILTA is to testers. It's a testers association, basically, providing network for testers, language assessors all over the world. What I really think is important is ILTA was the first institution that developed a code of ethics for language assessment. And they actually have this as if this were a law book, principle by principle, and as a language tester you sort of make a commitment to have respect for the humanity and dignity of each of your test takers, to hold all information in your professional capacity and confidence, and to adhere to all relevant ethical principles and so on. If you're interested, you can read in more detail later on in the guidelines for practice. Basically, they've got 7 main areas. They've got basic considerations for good testing practice. What is the responsibility of the test designer and test writer, what are the obligations of the institutions, what are the obligations if you are preparing and administering a publicly available test, what's the responsibility of the test results, what special considerations need to be made, and so on. Basically, if your institution, for instance, is thinking about, is this the right thing to do when we are administering a test? Should I be doing this as a tester? Should I not be doing it as a tester? Then this is actually a guideline to tell you, this is what's acceptable testing practice, this is not acceptable testing practice. I won't go into it in any more detail, but what I like about this website is they offer a list of PhDs which were done regarding language testing. So this is a PDF file, so it may take a little bit time for it to open. If you are doing any research and if you are looking for PhDs which were done in testing, then this is the resource to go to. Like I said, they have a huge list of all the PhDs that were done in testing. What else do? They carry out an annual conference for language testers and also for students who are doing their PhD in language testing. And this is actually a very good opportunity because students for language testing are able to present every stage of their research and PhD, and they're able to get feedback from very well-known names in the field. It's quite a friendly atmosphere too. Next year, for instance, it will be in Seoul, Korea, so if you're interested. There is also, and I would highly, highly recommend this, they have a discussion list, which is called LTestL. All you need to do is send a one-line message, and almost anyone who is known in the international area of testing subscribes to this list. You can write your research questions, you can write, if you are carrying out, for instance, a placement test research in your institution and need advice, you can ask for advice, and proper names will respond to you. I think it's a very important forum for testing assessment-related discussions. So do become a member. If you're not happy, you can unsubscribe, but I've been a member for like 7-8 years now, and it's fine. Okay. Resource number 3 is EALTA. Perhaps most of you are familiar with this. Now, EALTA is the European counterpart of ILTA. It stands for European Association for Language Testing and Assessment. It was established in 2002 with financial support from the European community. So initially, they did receive financial support. Right now, they're a self-financing organization. The goals are pretty much the same as ILTA, so I won't go over them. But what I would like to share with you is, just like ILTA's Code of Practice, they have guidelines for good practice as well. The difference with EALTA is they publish it in 35 different languages, including Turkish. So for instance, let's say you want a PDF version or PowerPoint version of these guidelines, and let's say you want to get them in Turkish. Okay. Hopefully it's going to work. Yes, okay. And you can see what their mission statement is, what they do, guidelines, examples, and so on. Okay? You can have a look at this in your own time, I guess. Where was I? I was in EALTA, wasn't I? Okay. Yes, that's where I was. Okay, so what we have here is, well, they tell you what kinds of things you should consider if you're including testing and assessment in your pre-service and in-service training. the considerations that you need to pay attention to for your classroom testing and assessment. And if you are developing a test on national or institutional, for your institutional testing unit, again, the things that you need to pay attention to. There are 4 SIGs. Maybe some of you are a member of some of the SIGs under EALTA. There's a classroom-based language assessment SIG. There's an assessing writing SIG, who's going to have a meeting in Ankara actually at the end of this month. Classroom-based language assessment SIG held a one-day conference in Istanbul back in November. EALTA also has, so if you become, membership for EALTA is free, and becoming a member of the SIG is free of charge as well. What they provide, and this is what I love about EALTA the most, I think, is every single event that they hold. For instance, yeah, this is the one that we held, the IEEE held together with EALTA. For every single conference that is held, a conference report is given, and down below here, if you move down, you get all the conference materials, conference presentations, the PowerPoints of the presentations, especially plenary presentations, and some others as well. They've been holding conferences since 2004, as you can see, in a different country every year. Like I said, they have an annual conference. This was 2010, this was 2011, this was 2012, and guess where 2013 is going to be? Yes? It's going to be in Istanbul. I'm one of the organizers. That's how I know. So, next year, at the end of May, hopefully, we're going to have a 3-day conference. It will be the first testing and assessment conference held in Turkey. Hopefully, I'll see all of you there, inshallah. Huh? Okay. These are the expert members. You may know some of the names. And the best thing is, you can contact these expert members and they do respond to you because they committed themselves to it. For instance, if you want information on alternative assessments, then it will tell you to contact Matt Asperson. If you want information on assessing listening, it will tell you to contact Gary Buck or Tony Green with their email addresses. Okay? Not bad. They hold a summer school. They've started holding a summer school. This is quite important, I think. Remember the issue I made at the beginning, lack of training? The first one they held was in 2010. It was called Good Practice in Language Testing and Assessment, an educational perspective. Another good thing about EALTA is they try to keep their fees at a minimum. So for instance, this year they are holding the second summer school in Sweden at the University of Gothenburg in August. And the fee for the 5-day course is only 150 euros. Yes, you need to pay for accommodation, but again, they try to get the best prices for you. And they are quite professional. So I would really, really recommend, if you have 5 days to spare in August, I would definitely recommend having a look at their summer school. Okay. Probably more people are familiar with equals, right? So I'm sweeping through now. I'm running out of time. They're an accreditation service. Can I see how many people are familiar with equals? Okay, then I'll just sweep through this. They basically accredit institutions. They are like the ISO, the quality agency for businesses. They have projects with their key partners. They've been one of the key players in the development of the Common European Framework. And if you are thinking of revising your curriculum, if you are thinking of revising your assessment scheme, then they offer advice, they audit your system, and basically they're an external accreditation for what we do. Are we familiar with ALTE, the Association of Language Testers in Europe? Okay, here's another source. ALTE is very much connected to Cambridge University, Cambridge ESOL actually. But it includes many of the world's leading language assessment bodies, currently 33 members in 27 different languages. I won't go over the members. They organize events as well because of this need to provide training. Unfortunately, their events are quite expensive. That's because they try to bring in some of the more well-established names in the field of testing as their tutors. So for instance, for a 2-day course, we may have to end up paying 350 euros, which is quite expensive in comparison to EALTA. But sometimes a single-day course, for instance, could be 80 euros. So this is definitely worth following as well. They too hold an annual conference in a different location every year. The last resource that I'd like to mention is, of course, the IATEFL Testing, Evaluation, and Assessment SIG. Okay, as you know, I'm sure you know, IATEFL was established in 1967. The SIG, the testing SIG, was established in 1986. It's the oldest testing SIG in the world. Of course, in the world, where else would it be? But IATEFL is a charity, just to remind you. And right now, we've grown over 4,000. We've reached more than 4,000 members in more than 100 countries. Now, so in the 26 years, actually, the SIG was created by Keith Morrow, who I'm sure some of you are quite familiar with. He calls himself the midwife of the testing SIG. It was then coordinated by Brian North, who, as you know, is Mr. Common European Framework. And then it was coordinated by Dave Allen, who is Mr. Placement Test. Then Kari Smith took over. Some of you are very familiar with her work, I know. Then it was Charles Burkhout, a Dutch gentleman. And then it was me for 4 years. I coordinated the SIG. And right now, Sue Hackett is coordinating the SIG. Again, I think some of you are familiar with her name, right? And what do we do? Well, we work on a voluntary basis. We try to cater for these training needs that I've been talking about. So what do we do? Ever since 2010, we've organized a conference, an annual conference, each in a different place. And we've actually selected themes, which I think are quite general. The first year we concentrated on benefits and limitations of the CFR. Then we looked at ESOL in Dublin. We held the first international conference in Northern Cyprus on speaking. Then we had 2 events in 2010, one in Dubai on standards, the other one in Barcelona in using the Common European Framework properly. Last year, we held it in Innsbruck on standardizing. So we do have an annual conference, and I do believe, and colleagues who have participated in these conferences have said it time and again, that these are training opportunities. Yes, you do come and present, but at the same time, this gives you the chance to go to a small, focused conference on testing on a special area like this. And I think they are quite important in my opinion. So if you are interested, I wouldn't mind if you leave me your email address. I would send you information about the upcoming conferences. What else do we do? We also hold a pre-conference event, which are single-day conferences. This is, of course, before the IATEFL annual conference. So, again, we try to look at different issues. For instance, we looked at language assessment in context. We analyzed portfolios for and professional development. Language placement tests, which can be a headache. We looked at those. We looked at reading, listening, writing. And next year, if you're coming to Liverpool, we will be looking at assessing grammar, which is quite an interesting area. So, course that I was talking about. We held the first IATEFL training course in Istanbul, in the world again. What we concentrated on was how do we use the Common European Framework for Classroom Assessment. Some of you who are in the room were there. We had a nice 5 days, didn't we? Yes? Yes? And Sue, myself, and Barry O'Sullivan, we were the trainers. We started asking for only 30 participants. We had to stop at 50. There was so much demand. And we had representation from 19 institutions around Turkey and some from other countries, which was really, really wonderful. And hopefully, we will be repeating these. We'll have another one in Dubai, and we'll have another one in Singapore. So, watch this space. Final words. Yes, these have to be my final words. Don't be discouraged if you are in or are thinking about becoming a tester, becoming more involved in assessment. There's some help available, but be warned and ready. Becoming a tester requires proper training and hard work. It's crazy to expect teachers to write proper tests if they haven't received training. It's just not fair on the teacher, on the student, on anyone. It requires people skills. You could be the best tester in the world, but you have to know how to relate to people. If you are going to work with a group of people and standardize them, if you are going to grade papers with them. It requires development of some very thick skin, am I right? Yes? But it happens over time. Mine is probably bulletproof now. And it does require keeping in touch with international development. So do please consider some of these resources that I've mentioned. Do consider becoming a member of one of these institutions and keeping in line with what is going on internationally.